Welcome to session 2 of this webinar series, Conversations with Middle East Christians. My name is Rowena Worthington and I am Church Relationships Manager at Embrace the Middle East, based in the UK, and we are delighted to be partnering with Churches for Middle East Peace in the US. So on behalf of both of our organisations, a very warm welcome and thank you everyone for joining us. I know that you can't all see each other there, but please do feel free to say hello to each other in the chat. I think you're already doing so, which is great. So we'd love to know who you are and where you're joining us from. So do say hello. And we're going to do a question and answer session towards the end or about halfway through. So if you have any questions to ask, then please use the Q&A box, which should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen, just so that we can filter these away from the chat. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce both of our speakers for this evening. Firstly, Reverend Colin Chapman, who is one of our speakers for all 4 of these sessions. Now, Colin has worked for 18 years in the Middle East, where he taught in Egypt, Lebanon, and Palestine. Colin is ordained in the Anglican Church and has written books, including Whose Promised Land, and more recently, Christian Zionism and the Restoration of Israel. Embrace and CMEP actually collaborated with Colin on a webinar for the latter, so do watch that back if you weren't able to join us for that. I'd also like to give a very warm welcome to our special guest this evening, Archimandrite Emmanuel Yuhana, who is joining us from Duhok in northern Iraq. He is founder and director and of Embrace's partner CAPNI, amongst other things. And I'm going to hand over to Colin now, and Father Emmanuel as well will give a fuller introduction to himself. So we're going to have about 40 minutes with them, and then we'll have about half an hour at the end. So do pop your questions in the chat as we go along. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Rowena. Let me say first of all that I'm really glad that we're able to devote one of our 4 webinars to Iraq, because for most of us, Iraq isn't often in the headlines of our news these days. Most of us probably haven't followed recent political developments, and we know very little about the Christian communities in the country. So we're really looking forward to hearing from Abuna Emmanuel. And I'd like to begin by asking Abuna Emmanuel to introduce himself. So Abuna, can you tell us something about yourself, your story, and how you come to be where you are at the moment?
Good morning for many of the attendants, and good afternoon and good evening for others. Thank you to Church for Middle East, and thank you for Abuna Colin and Rowena for this webinar. I am Father Emmanuel Yuhana from the Assyrian Church of the East. I am based in Duhok in north part of Iraq, Kurdistan, as I am the executive director of the biggest local Christian faith-based organization active here since 30 years, since 1993. The name is CAPNI. CAPNI is the abbreviation of Christian Aid Program Nohadra, Iraq. Nohadra is the historical Christian name of Duhok. I'm pleased to be with you today, and Abuna Colin mentioned that Iraq, whereas for decades, unfortunately, was making the news because unpleasant situation, catastrophic situation which we passed through. We were not only in the news, we were making the news, of course, sad news, suffering news. And now we are not on the news, but at least I would say we expect Iraq to be always in the church concerns, because Iraq is part of the biblical lands. biblical lands should not be limited to the political borders that we have in the Middle East, but to the Bible history. So, and Iraq is the homeland of Father Abraham. Iraq is where Jonah, the prophet, Daniel, and other prophets had been. So Iraq is part of biblical land, and I'm sure that churches are always recalling Iraq in their prayers and there. I am in Indahok because, as I mentioned, that as director of CAPNI, which was founded in 1993. If we recall back what happened in Iraq, 1991, the Gulf War, and the mass exodus of people towards Turkish and Iranian borders, and then the safe haven which was created in Kurdistan, and people came back from that exodus. And it is the first time, this for the record, we have to share it with you now, as elsewhere, is for the record, it is the first time, absolutely the first time for the Christians, except Lebanon, of course, it's always some special in Lebanon, that Christians who were forced to leave, who were deported from their motherlands, homelands, villages, towns, and going back to their homeland. All over the history, starting the Saifo, the genocide 1915, in Hakkari, in Wan, in Tur Abdin, the Christians left those regions and they were never back. The Christians left in north part of Iran and they are never back. Now recently in Khabur in Syria. So only in Kurdistan, only in Iraq, 1991, after years of all our villages were demolished under the former regime, ex-regime, after 1991, we got the chance to go back and build the life in our villages. And this was the start point of CAPNI. In 1993, we started to help the people who were returning back to their villages, demolished villages, and to build their life. And this is why, since 1993, we adopted and we committed ourselves to our motto to keep the hope alive. And hope is not just an emotional word that we can give a nice sermon on it on Sunday, for example, but on Monday morning, the mom will come to us for medicine, the child will ask for school, the young will ask for work. So this is what we are trying to do, to materialize the hope and to give the hope in practice for Christian people and other vulnerable people to trust they have a future in their homeland. So this the reason behind CAPNI Foundation 1993, which started a small local organization. Now we became a leading organization in the region. And here I would like to say something very, very important, which is, whereas unfortunately, again, I underline, unfortunately, we were unable to restore Christian demography in Iraq. We were 3% of Iraq, now we are 0.6%. So whereas we are unable to restore the demography, we can restore our role in the community and Christian role, to make Christian role and Christian visible to the community, to the neighboring communities all over Iraq through education institutions, through healthcare institutions, and through humanitarian work. And this is what we are CAPNI doing, that there is it's not just we are working to support the needy. We are not just working motivated by our Christian values, but also through our work, the Christian role is being visible for the people. So this is what we are, why we are here, and we will keep, because we think that we are requested, or we are asked by God to be His messengers in this land. We should keep ourselves the light, like the light shining, or like the salt for the people here.
Thank you, Abuna. I wonder if I can begin the questions by asking you to explain something about the general situation in Iraq at the present time. What is the political situation? Do you have a new government? What is the economic situation? How are relations between the Christians and the Shiite communities and the Sunni communities? If you can give us a general picture of what the situation is like in the country as a whole.
Yeah, Abuna. Well, it is quite good start point for the discussion. However, to understand and to give the scene of today, we need to go back to what happened in Iraq 2003, when the former regime was toppled. What happened in 2003, it was not just changing a regime, toppling a ruler, dictatorship regime, replace it by another one. Actually, what happened in 2003 was the collapse of a state. Iraqi as a state was collapsed. And by state collapse, I'm referring to the military, security, government, everything, public services. So it took long, and still we hadn't achieved a restored the stable Iraq in terms of politics, political and military and security issues, and which leads, of course, for economy. So since 2003, for a couple of years, we had vacuum of power. We have vacuum of role, and therefore there was very systematic gang crimes against minorities, asking for ransom, for attacking. And there was, of course, the militias run by political parties. So still we, of course, the criminal gangs is over that phase, but the militia is still there. So what we have in Iraq now is a very unstable political system, which is not functioning as a state should function. We have paramilitary, the Al-Hajj al-Sha'bi, popular this militia, in controlling or in parallel to the military. So there will be no stable government in any country of the world if there is a paramilitary. This one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that Iraq, since 2003, is dominated by Islamic parties, mainly, of course, Shiite parties, which are more loyal and under influence of Iran. However, since a couple of years, we see there are two political streams within the Shiites. One is very much loyal to Iran, which is now in power and had been always in power. And the other one is more loyal or seeking independent from Iran, which is led by Muqtada al-Sadr, who have a very popular Shiite reference among Shiites. Then we have also this sectarian, that we have three parts in Iraq, three communities, let us say, three powers: Shiites, Sunnis, Kurds. Unfortunately, what we see now, they are like gluing. They are glued. They are not integrated. It's glued, and there was always conflicts. And we were very optimistic that with this ongoing government which was formed, Mr. al-Sudani, who is doing well, but still he is unable to make the decisions without the influence of the parties. And then this is why always the conflicts are there. And recently, it's now just 2 days, the problem between Erbil and Baghdad again is escalating. I hope the problems which it looks like they are always there I hope they will not lead for civic war or for violence or military clashes, because unfortunately, in many cases, it's happening. Last week, it happened between the Shiite Iraq loyal to Iran and al-Sadr. There are many clashes, Baghdad and Basra, offices be set to burn, set to fire. So having all these, the minorities, normal Iraqis, even who are normal people, normal families, normal young people who are Shiite, Sunnis, whoever, they don't feel that there is a stability, and they don't have in many times a perspective. What about then about minorities? So being part of Iraq, we are facing the same challenge, instability, this tension that may happen. I hope not. I hope not. I hope what's ongoing in Sudan between the military and paramilitary, I hope it will not happen in Iraq, but you never know. This all instability and these issues are leading to lack of economic development programs. And this is leading to unemployment. So there are many, many problems created by that. And we hope, just a second, let me turn it on. Okay. Therefore, I would say that the challenge we are facing are more than the normal Iraqis are facing, because of course we are not supported by any security or militias. We don't have the political influence. We are not supported by external actors. And then the other challenge, which is very, very much important, is that what we are having demographic change of our lands, mainly in Nineveh Plain. Again, here is the role of militias. We have the Shiite militia in Nineveh Plain who are supported security in terms of security, in terms of politics, in funding. So they are having this pressure upon Christian families in Nineveh Plain. We are losing the ground in many cases. However, in Kurdistan, the situation is different. You asked about Iraq, but actually, in reality, we have two Iraqs in day-to-day life. I mean, one Iraq, one country, one flag, one president, one currency, one. But in reality, Kurdistan is very much different than Iraq here, because the attitude and the ambitions of the decision makers are more national, Kurdish national ambitions. They are not more religious or Islamic attitude or ambitions. They are doing quite fine with Christian communities. So in Kurdistan, Christians are better than other parts of Iraq, but there are here other challenges. So many people, Christian families are in Kurdistan now because they fled Baghdad, Mosul, Basra, so they cannot communicate in Kurdish. Here are all Kurdish language. So how you can integrate in a community, have a job opportunity if you don't know the language of that. So, and the weak economy of the region are challenged to it. We are in Iraq, in north part of Iraq, in Kurdistan, we are having quite good respect and quite good activities. Church is free to act. Church is and even evangelizing. There are groups who are evangelizing. We don't lack any infrastructure. Speaking for church, the programs of church can go. And there are quite good, demography compared to other parts of Iraq, but the challenges are different because many of our Christian community in Kurdistan are displaced. They are not able to integrate. The job market is limited. And also we have problems of land grabbing in more than 30 or 40 Christian villages. There is land grabbing issue with neighboring countries. I hope I covered the question. Please don't hesitate to ask if you have specific questions for any further details.
Yes. Would I go on to ask a bit more about the Christian churches in Iraq? Did I hear you correctly when you said that the Christians used to be 3% of the total population and are now 0.6%? And can you give us some idea of the different denominations and how they work together, the different families of churches?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, because as I was following sisters and brothers who are attending I was seeing many of them are from the States and from far countries who might not be aware about Christians in Iraq. In many cases, people think that the Christians in Iraq are recently evangelized, newly established church. Actually, this is incorrect. Christianity in Iraq is 2,000 years old. So Christianity, let us say, is historical, let us say, historical religion of Iraqis before Islam. They were do exist. So this means that we have church who goes back 2,000 years ago, 2 millennia. In this regards, I'm referring to Church of the East, and then we have Syriac Orthodox Church, all they are 2,000 years. And then, of course, later on, we had, it's in recent centuries, in last 3 or 4 centuries, we have more church when the native church were separated to have each part have a Catholic part. So now we have Orthodox Church. By Orthodox Church families, let him use this word family, Orthodox families. We have the Syriac Orthodox, Armenian Orthodox, and a small community of Melkite Catholic or Rome Orthodox. And then we have the Catholic family, which is a bigger family. They are within the Chaldean, within the Catholic family, we have the Chaldean Catholic, which is forming almost 70 to 70, around 70% of Iraq, 2/3 of Iraq Christians. The Chaldeans are the part of our church, Church of the East, Mother Church of Chaldeans, who before 300 years, 3 centuries, came to unite with the Roman Catholic Church. So and they were called Chaldean Catholic. So they are the bigger one. So again, a Catholic family, there are the Chaldean Catholic, there are Syriac Catholic, there are Armenian Catholic, and a small community of Latins. Yeah. And then we have the, let us say, Church of the East family, which is our church, and one part of our church was separated in 1963. We call it Ancient Church of the East. And then we have in last century, almost 100 years or 120 years, we have Protestant church. So we have this nice diverse. We have the nice diverse of Christianity. However, unfortunately, it's painful, I would say, that whereas we have this rich diversity, but still, unfortunately, we are in Iraq, we are unique, negatively unique, different than other Middle East countries, that we don't have an economical platform bringing all churches together to speak one voice, to speak one, and this is one of the reasons that it's weakening us, because the churches are not speaking in one voice, because we don't have this platform. We have a diverse, but we don't have the platform to bring this diverse all to speak one voice. Speak for demography, yes, we were 3% of Iraq, but now we are 0.6 because of waves of bleeding and migration, mainly under former regime of Saddam Hussein, and then during the years of international sanctions against Iraq since 1990 till 2003, and then another wave because of the instability which I spoke about, this vacuum of power, vacuum of rule, vacuum of law, and of course we know what happened in 2014 under ISIS, where it was another big wave, huge of exodus. So therefore, we went from 3% to 0.6% of Iraqi, unfortunately.
And tell us something about your Christian communities in the diaspora. I would imagine that there are many hundreds of thousands of Iraqi Christians in the States and Australia. I would hope that they are very supportive and are supporting you morally and financially.
Well, diaspora is a diaspora when there is a homeland. Once homeland is gone, the diaspora is no more diaspora. So this is the role. What we do expect, or we ask diaspora to do, is to keep the homeland living. Otherwise, it's the roots. Once the roots of a tree are cut or dead, the tree is next day will fall down. So the homeland, despite weak, but still is the root of the diaspora, and it gives this moral, at least, and give the identity for the diaspora. The Christian diaspora, Iraqi Christian diaspora, is covering North America, mainly the States, Canada. In Europe, all over Europe, of course, Western Europe and Scandinavia, and in Far East in Australia and New Zealand. So you see, we have all the continents except Africa, but all the we have. The diaspora is much stronger than homeland in terms of figures, population, in terms of institutions, in terms of economy, academy, and of course in terms of church. Now the church dioceses in diaspora, they are in number of dioceses are more than the homeland, and in capacity more than. However, and of course they have this, they can give the voice, they can be the voice. However, unfortunately, the diaspora is doing, but not that much. They are doing less than that what they can do, and less than what we need them to do in terms of investing their resources. I'm not speaking about physical return, but I mean speaking about investing their resources, whether academic, whether financial, to build the infrastructure and support the community. They are doing, but less than what we ask them to do, and less than what they can do. And especially in terms of advocacy, lobbying, being the voice for the voiceless.
And can I ask, Abuna, do you have good relationships with the central government in Baghdad, or are there complications and difficulties from time to time?
Well, we have always nice statements from the government. We have always, you are the colorful flowers of Iraq, you are the roots of Iraq, you are. Very nice statements. But in reality, we don't have that. These statements are not practiced in many cases. So therefore, we have relations to the central government. We always have a minister there. We have always quota, Christian quota in the Iraq, but it is denominated by Christians influenced by Shiites. So they are doing, they don't work for a Christian agenda. They are working as a decor to beautify this these militias. We have a Christian called a Christian militia, which is headed by Christians, but all they are Shiites, and they are like any other militia, and they are taking over the parliament quota and the ministry. But again, I would say we have nice statements, but in reality, for example, this one of our challenge we are doing in the church and Captain, we had progressed a lot in this, achieved, is the article, the famous article, we call it Article 26 in Iraqi national identity, which is saying that for any family, any non-Muslim family, if one of the parents, whether mom or dad, whether the mother or a wife or the husband, be a Muslim, all the minors, all the children under 18 will be registered immediately and as Muslims. And then, of course, you know, when they are 18 years, if they ask to change to go back to their, then it's impossible for them. So this, for example, this we had brought it to the desk of the government, to the desk of the parliament, but so far it's not changed. We are lobbying for that, but still. I give you another example. The curricula in schools. I was mentioning that now that 2000 years Christianity is in Iraq, but there is no single paragraph. I'm not speaking about chapter. There is no single paragraph speaking about, throughout the history, there were churches in Iraq, there are Christians in Iraq, and having photos of this monastery. No, nothing. So we are just receiving nice statements, but in reality, people are not convinced.
Yes, thank you. Could we go on, Abuna, to talk about some of the activities of CAPNI? What are some of the practical ways in which you're trying to support and strengthen the Christian community and give them hope for the future?
As I mentioned, that the start point of CAPNI started to help the Christians for the first time to go to their demolished villages and rebuild. So therefore, from day one, our target was clear, geography, I mean, for this region, and our goal, our aim was clear: to rebuild the Christian community life, and also this fields of, because to rebuild something which it was beyond just relief. No, you need to build the church, you need to build the schools, you need to rehabilitate and restore irrigation canals, farms, livelihood. Therefore, whereas we are one organization, we are addressing more than one field. So practically speaking, we are active in four fields. We call them sectors. One of them, which is unique in CAPNI, no other organization do have it, which we call Eastern Christianity. Eastern Christianity sector is working to build the capacity of the native church in terms of equipping, in terms of courses, publishing, etc., etc. All what a church needs. And of course, based on a clear plan and a recommendation by the church that we need this and this and this. And then in this Eastern Christianity also, because as I mentioned, it's a matter of identity, we also focus on the Syriac language, promotion of the Syriac language. Because when we are speaking about 2000 years of Christianity, 2000 years church in Iraq, we are speaking about 2000 years library. We are speaking about 2000 year liturgy. We are 2000 year literature, all in Syriac language, which is our mother language. So we need to promote it in terms of investing in digital era to teach, especially we mentioned that diaspora, because whereas I spoke about very strong points in diaspora, but we should keep in mind that it's a matter of time and diaspora will lose their identity, speaking even for the church, will be the liturgy, the literature, etc., etc. So we have this Eastern Christianity to address this part. And then we have the community development. And in community development, we are addressing two kind of projects we are implementing, which Embrace is part of this sector. One of them is Embrace, Embrace the Middle East, EME. One part is livelihood. giving vocational training for young people unemployed to get the skills, or giving them loans to start their business. Of course, after having a business plan that they have the skills, they're in the market. So we give loans as well. And then the other part of the community development is the projects which go to the benefit of the community, not a family or individual. For example, a rehabilitation of the irrigation canals, rehabilitation or restoring or the maintaining the water system, drinking water system, electricity. So this, we call it public services, community services. What's important here, this I will go back to the diaspora issue, that in this regard, we had a condition for a community when they are asking for such, said, okay, welcome, very much welcome. We will help you to have the bill of quantity, pricing, everything, technical issues, but you have to ask your community, your diaspora to lead, and we support. They should lead, they should contribute at least 50% of the budget, and we support you. And it was quite successful. Many villages, when they invested in their diaspora source. So this is the community development sector. The other one is the health, and health speaks for itself, of course, whether health awareness or the some basic treatments or medicines, mainly the chronic. Of course, we operate a mobile clinic to reach the remote villages. And of course, under Corona, where there were special program of health. So this health, which speaks for itself as well. However, all these three parts and other parts, which we did sometimes relief in case of emergency only, because we focus on development. We don't want to give fish every day for a family, but we give them how to fish, not, sustainable development. However, all these programs, which Chapman is doing and other organizations are doing, are addressing the consequences and the damage created by this catastrophe, the recent one of ISIS. However, we thank them all. However, we need to address the root of the problem and to fix it once and forever. And this is why we have advocacy. This is what we advocate for the peace building, advocate for coexistence, advocate for the rights of the minorities. But of course, advocacy needs time. To rehabilitate a drinking water system, you need 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and you touch the outcome. Advocacy, you need years and decades to work, but still we are working. We achieved good things in the curricula, revising the curricula in Kurdistan, not in Baghdad. In Baghdad, no chance, because they are motivated by this Islamic, unfortunately, environment. Here we got good. We injected, let me put it this way, we revised the curricula in 3 terms. One, dropping what we thought it's not proper to be there. One, to add something which we think needs to be added. And the third, to amend. Well, so advocacy, we are working. So altogether, we are for Eastern Christianity, community development, health, and advocacy. Embrace is part of the community development projects. We had now almost 3 years working together.
Abuna, am I right in thinking that much of your activity is in the north of Iraq? I'm just thinking of the map of Iraq. I have it in my mind at the moment. What is happening in the Nineveh plain and what is happening in Basra? Am I right in thinking that the communities that you're working with are mostly in the north and not so much in the main plain, the Nineveh plain and around Basra?
Well, no, Nineveh plain is a very important part of our work. Okay, again, it goes back to 1993 when we started in Dohuk to rebuild the villages, which we have in Dohuk. Christian survivors are in Dohuk, more than 100. And by that time, we don't have access to Nineveh Plain because we are under Saddam, that region. Since 2003, we expanded, but we expanded to the region where are Christians and other minorities, not to everywhere. We can't cover Iraq. I know all people in Iraq are in need, but we can't cover. So in terms of geography, we are addressing 3 regions: Dohuk, Nineveh Plain, and Sinjar, Shingal, but mainly in Nineveh Plain and Dohuk. Nineveh Plain, just for example, when after being retaken from ISIS, by the way, I never use the word liberated. I never use the territories taken by ISIS were liberated, because liberation tells much more than what we had. But I use retaken. So when Nineveh Plain was retaken from ISIS, we were one of the first who addressed the needs mainly of Christian community and Yazidis. We restored 1,432 houses, family houses partially damaged to enable families to go back. We restored in the first year more than 200 shops who were looted or damaged or burned. More than 12 churches were, 32 schools. So Nineveh Plain is always in our progress. Now, in the moment we are speaking to you, we have program running in Batnaya, which is in Nineveh Plain, another one in Teleskov, in Bartella, so in Bashika. So we are working in Nineveh Plain, in Dohuk, and in Sinjar, a little bit, because Sinjar is another issue. There is many challenges, security challenge. You don't know who is who. There are many challenges but
lastly,
but going south, no, we are not. We are focused on the 3.
Yes. Can I come then to my last question, Abuna? You've given us a wonderful picture, and I have a clear picture in my mind now of you rebuilding houses and helping with irrigation and rebuilding and supporting the Christian community. How can we outside help? Obviously, we can help the particular projects that you've been thinking about, but there are other ways, apart from prayer and financial giving, are there other ways in which you feel that Christians outside Iraq can support you?
First of all, thank you. You have supported, but again, I would say we still need the support. I used to say for Capney, for example, for Capney, I say always, we are happy that we had been able to help our people, but we'll be more than happy when our people will not be in need of our help. So as long as there is a need, the help is needed. And especially in our case, I used to say it this way, and I repeat it here. In many cases, we might seem or we might be helpless, but we are never hopeless. So we ask the church to enhance this hope. But first of all, I missed an information to say, when I'm speaking about we are targeting Dohuk, Nineveh Plain, and Sinjar, we are not exclusively working for Christians. No, Yazidis are there as well, because we are addressing the vulnerable communities, and in this case, Yazidis are in the criteria because they are very much vulnerable and they suffered a lot. They are still suffering. Hundreds of thousands of Yazidis still they are in the camps under tents. They hadn't returned to their demolished villages in destroyed villages in Sinjar and other places. So we address also they are in there. Yes, Abuna, the sister churches in Western countries can do a lot. They did, but they can do a lot because still we need them. We need them to be our voice. That's very important. Of course, the prayers, the financial, but also we want them to be our voice in their connections, whether our voice within the community, through the newsletter, through this, like this webinar and others, and also the voice for in the regional or country or European institutions on the level of parliament, on the level of governments. So I mean, to lobby, to advocate. You may ask how you can. Yes, you the church can do a lot of lobbying. At least we are not asking them. We are not asking to be more than others. We are speaking about equality. Yeah. Therefore, we hope that whereas the Western countries are supporting politically, diplomatically, financially, in security, helping Iraq, at least let this help be conditioned and combined with human rights criteria, the minorities' rights criteria. When these rights are abused, these rights are breached, there should be something to be said and something to be acted. So this way you can help us as our voice, advocate, lobby, and of course we need always, whether in these times, in critical times, or even in peaceful times, we need the prayers always. We should not undermine the power of prayer. And then we have also the material need in terms of financial, supporting projects, supporting young people. It's not only supporting in terms of material, I mean projects, maybe in academic level, in schooling, projects and programs.
Thank you so much, Abuna. I'm going to hand over now to Rowena. I think she's been following the questions that have been put up, and she's going to put to you some of the questions that people have asked.
Rowena, I spoke a lot. Maybe I took the time of the participants. I didn't give them enough time for questions, but I'm very pleased to listen for every question.
Yeah, we still have quite a bit of time, and we've received a few questions on the Q&A box, but to all our participants, do keep putting questions in the Q&A function. So the first question that I'm going to ask that we've received is there a dialogue between Christian and other religious leaders in Iraq?
Well, I would not say dialogue. There are political or protocol visits, protocol statements, but dialogue not. And still, unfortunately, many of high rank Muslim institutions, or what they call scholars, still they speak about in dhimmi's attitude. They still the mentality of dhimmitude. They expect to still do not as equal people. No, the dialogue, there is no dialogue, and but just protocol visits in the seasons and the special times. Yeah.
Okay, and someone else has asked, what are the challenges facing a young Christian family growing up in Iraq? And I know you talked about some of the differences between Iraqi Kurds and Iraqis living in federal Iraq. So maybe you could just address both of those.
Well, a part of what I mentioned about this security, this curricula, this article, this challenge for the young generation, for the young Christian generation, is the they lack the perspective because they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah, Iraq, because of the instability, this reason, and the most challenge is the employment. The percentage of the unemployment between Christians is higher than the percentage in other Iraqis. So for the young generation, the employment and livelihood is very really a challenge. Yeah. On family level, but on collective Christian level, as I mentioned, is this. I put it this way. In Western countries, I have been in Germany. If something is happening based on racist or discrimination, whatever, against refugees, whatever, in next day there will be a debate on the national level of the country, in the parliament, why this incident happened. In Iraq, all what happened, and still there is no national debate of what happened, why it happened, how to prevent it. So therefore, the Christians and Yazidis who were the victims, they're feeling, okay, we are not in the to-do list of the government. So this is the feeling they are marginalized, they are ignored, they are not important. So this is a common feeling about in Christian and Yazidis as well, not only Christians.
Thank you. So I guess kind of following on from that question, someone else has asked if young people are more willing than their elders to link across to other communities.
I didn't get the question. My English is not that good sometimes. I don't get it. Please.
If young people are more willing than the older generation, perhaps, to link across and connect with the other communities.
Yes, because the world became a small village. Yeah. So here, I mean, we don't live ghettos. We don't live ghettos. The young people through the curricula, I mean, through the schooling in the university. No, the Christian are young people are linked. I mean, they have activities with their non-Christian generations. Yeah. The old people, yeah, almost we were. In Iraq we had been, but of course the new generation are more linking. You see in the events. In the events we do have here, when in mixed communities like Bashika, like Nineveh Plain, like Duhok, in the events you see Muslims, Christians in attending the same event.
Great, that's great to hear. And I know that CAPNI as well, it's quite a young team, isn't it? And I think that's what we've seen across some of our partner organizations, that there's a lot of young people, young Christians kind of rising up, and they're really just showing hope and resilience as the next generation, which is really great. You mentioned, Father Emmanuel, that the Christian population has gone down to 0.6%. One of our participants has asked if that appears to be stabilizing or is it increasing, and either way, what's causing that increase or continuing decline?
Again, the question in easy words.
Yes, of course, sorry. The number of Christians, the Christian population in Iraq, is it rising or is it going down?
No, it's going down, unfortunately, because this tendency to migrate is still there. Yeah. However, during Corona, of course, there are no chances, and now with what's ongoing in Europe, this crazy war, and what's going in the smuggling paths and through the Mediterranean or through Turkey to Greece, it is no more easy like it was. But the tendency is there, but not everyone can do it now. Yeah. So the percentage and the number is declining. Now, after Corona, it's less than before. I mean, in the 2014 till 2019, it was a mass exodus. Now it's less, but still is there. Yeah. Clear?
Yes, very. Yeah. Thank you. Another question that's come in is about Christians and whether they own business world. businesses. And this person has alluded to the fact that perhaps in other countries in the Middle East, Christians own private businesses, and whether this is the same in Iraq.
We had no problem in this regards. I mean, whenever a Christian has the financial capacity to start his own business, he can. However, like other places, there is the corruption. There are this being close to the political party, but this is not only for Christian, for all. I mean, the Kurds as well, the Muslim as well, when sometimes because of corruption, because of, I mean, in this regard, we are like all other people. The only difference is that was in Baghdad that when they issued this, when they prohibited the alcohol businesses, because according to Islamic law, in Iraq and other Islamic world, that the alcohol business cannot, the license cannot be given to a Muslim. So therefore, it was a good business. I'm not speaking consuming alcohol. The Muslim consume more than, but I mean to deal or to, I mean, having the shops. It was only Christians and Yazidis. Now in Baghdad, they issued a law that it's not allowed. It's prohibited because Islamic. Yeah. Anyway, this business, which was only Christian and Yazidi, they are now because of this law. In Kurdistan, no, this is okay. So again, back in briefly to speak, yes, the Christians have their private sector, or as in public sector, there is no problems to have. The only issue is how much is your financial capacity, how much you can compete to others, and sometimes, of course, unfortunately, this corruption, which is not targeting Christians, targeting all, and this the issue of having supported by a politician, or this is unfortunately in our country.
Okay, thank you, Father Emmanuel. Someone's asked a question about the status of women, both those who are Christian and those who are Muslim, and if they're able to be community leaders or teachers or not.
Yeah, no, there is nothing stopping women, yeah, from having, well, for example, now the advisor of Kurdistan president for minorities issues is a lady. It's a Christian lady. On the parliament level, in the ministry, of course, still the percentage is less than what we have in Europe, yeah, or less than what we have in the States, but still no problem for women to be in public positions, and also in private. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We've had another question about the status of the military and the armed group activity in the KRG focused on Turkey, and how this affects the local population and how the local population feel about it. Again,
that question.
Sorry, yeah, so it's about the military activity in the KRG, the Kurdish regional government, and the military activity that's focused on Turkey and the effect that that's having on the population.
Well, the military operations, this Turkish PKK conflict is affecting a lot. Dozens of Christian families left their villages. More than 14 Christian villages are abandoned because of course, out of other hundreds of Kurdish villages are abandoned because of this military operations and attacks by Turkish airstrikes, and they deployed recently ground troops fighting against PKK. And there is, for example, a complete region in Kandil and in Nerwa Rekan. We have more than 8 villages there. It's completely under PKK. People are not able to go. So we are, it's affecting a lot. It's affecting a lot, unfortunately.
Father Emmanuel, you mentioned before the webinar started, when we were having kind of our pre-meeting chat, you mentioned that it was 43 degrees out there in Duhok at the moment. I don't know what that translates to our American friends in Fahrenheit, but it's very hot. And I know that an increase in temperature and also droughts has affected Iraq quite a lot. And so we've had a question about climate change and the effect that this is having on Iraq, and also whether CAPNI are doing anything to address this.
Well, according to UN studies, Iraq is one of the top 5 countries affected by this crisis, climate crisis. Yesterday, the Ministry of Water in Iraq issued a statement that the save, let us say, the water in the Iraqi dams and rivers is the less this year, less through all the history. It's a record. So we are suffering in terms of water, in terms of rain. Now, for example, what we call rain line, when I was studying in the high school, it was considered 90 kilometers south of Mosul. It was the rain line. Now it's 40 kilometers north of Mosul. So we are, more and more deserts in Iraq. So the climate change is becoming a climate crisis. In Duhok, we have now 43 centigrade, 23 degree now, which is unbelievable to have such a hot day in Duhok. Therefore, the climate change is in our community development programs. We supporting the solar energy, installing solar energy in the schools, and now for CAPNI as well we'll do, and also giving the awareness for, because one of the problems we have in Iraq, and of course in other countries as well, many people are not aware about this problem. Therefore, you see that no control on the consumption of water, no green places and garbage, etc. So we are trying to give also awareness about climate challenge, increasing planting more and more trees, green spaces, reducing the consumption of fuel, of the diesel. It is in our projects. Therefore, when we are designing a project, we are trying always to have some components related to the climate change, whether a project or solar energy or changing the methodology of planting, for example, or in terms of awareness about this. It is a real challenge for Iraq, the climate change.
Thank you. I've also just looked it up, and 43 degrees Celsius is 109.4 Fahrenheit. So hopefully all of our friends in the US can understand just how hot it is in Iraq at the moment. Yeah. Okay, I'll just ask one last question and then I will hand over to Colin to see if he's got any closing questions as well. And it's about the irrigation programs from Turkey, and whether they've impacted and affected agriculture in Iraq.
Yeah, as I just mentioned, that water sources are more and more drying. Many small rivers are now dry. Therefore, we are supporting the farmers to control the use of water through better irrigation methodology. Sometimes when is the irrigation canal coming from the mountain to the village, we are trying to, and this AME, Embrace was part of that project, to, do it in concrete, or stones, not to consume, to waste the water, and to be able to control it through small gates. And then when we are also greenhouses and planting, not like the traditional way to let the water go and waste. Now we are trying to this, I don't know the English word for it, but I mean through pipes or plastic pipe that the water goes only to the place where it should go. So the irrigation canals really had changed the life. It made the difference in the families' income, because they had keep having enough water for irrigating because of this rehabilitation of the irrigation canals. Thanks to Embrace. Thanks to Embrace, because Embrace was a partner in more than one project when we addressed the issue of irrigation.
Well, it's our pleasure. And this actually might be a good time for me to jump in quickly before I hand over to Colin and just talk about the other projects that Embrace support in Iraq, just because I think our participants might be interested to hear that. So we've recently started to partner with an organization called the Ankawa Humanitarian Committee, who are based, they're based in Ankawa, which is a Christian suburb of Erbil. And they're also doing work to do with climate change, and they're doing this in schools. So the hope with that is to empower young Iraqi Christians, as well as addressing the issue of climate change. And our other partner, both of these are with the Chaldean Archdiocese, which Father Emmanuel, you mentioned earlier, is under the umbrella of the Catholic Church. And we support the Mariamana Hospital through the Chaldean Diocese as well, which is also in Ankawa. So they're helping lots of Iraqis who have been internally displaced, and also Syrian refugees living in Ankawa, through emergency healthcare, and they provide surgery and also free breast cancer screening for women. So that's just a bit about the broader picture of Embrace's partnerships. And I've just been told we've got time for one more question, so I'll just ask this very quickly before I hand over to Colin. You mentioned, Father Emmanuel, about advocacy, and someone has asked, what are the key advocacy messages that we can use?
Well, I would say, if I put it in one sentence, I was interviewed in a TV when we came to this issue. I said, we are all to the country if the country is to all of us, which means that advocating for having equality, that to build a citizenship state, that all citizens, regardless their identity, are equal in the front of the law. So the discrimination laws that we have in, so if we, because this will go beyond Christians only, because we have also the Yazidis, we have the Mandians, all this, we suffer this discrimination based on religion. So I would say to advocate for a citizenship state where all people are equal regardless their identity. And I gave you an example of Article 26 in the ID, where Islamization of minors is very dangerous law. We can advocate for it, for example.
Thank you. So I think, Colin, over to you.
Thank you, Rowena, and thank you, Abuna. We called this series of webinars Conversations with Middle Eastern Christians, and I think it's been an amazing hour we've had looking at your face, Abuna Emmanuel, on the screen. And I would say that you have given us an incredible example of what it means as a Christian to be salt and light in your community. I'm amazed at the holistic program that you have described. You've touched on economics, you've touched on politics, you've talked about climate change, the status of women, the educational curriculum, you've talked about irrigation. This is incredibly holistic. You've talked about your community trying to be rooted in the country and be aware of its history. One thing I'd like to suggest, I wonder if, in response to one of the questions that I saw, I wonder if Embrace would be able to put together a very short paper that describes the history of Christianity going back those 2,000 years, and perhaps one or two simple diagrams explaining the different families of churches. If Embrace could make resources of that kind available to us, I think we'd all be very grateful. I've also been reminded by you, Abuna, that Bible Lands is not just Israel, Palestine, but includes Iraq. So whenever I read in the prophets about Baghdad or about Babylon or about the Medes and the Persians, I want to be reminded to pray for the people in Iraq today. And I think the last thing I want to say is that having seen your face so clearly on the screen, I will be praying for you, and I know that everybody else who has been watching this last hour will be praying for you. And I want to thank Embrace and CMEP for making it possible for us to have these really enriching conversations. And I hope that these conversations will really lead to action that will change the situation and will enable the gospel to be heard and demonstrated in so many practical ways in Iraq. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Abuna. Alf shukr and sallim tummak.
Thank you, Abuna. If I'm allowed, just if I have less than 1 minute time left, to close with what I started, that Iraq, and you mentioned as well here about Iraq is not is a part of biblical land. It is. So, and we were asking about how can Western Church can be with us. So maybe Embrace or other church can start the initiative to manage group visits to this holy land in Iraq, to visit Nineveh, Jonah, to visit Uruk, Abraham, to visit Al-Kosh, Nahum. So include, and all the ministries is another way of solidarity and partnership on community level. Because Abuna, if I'm going today to visit a village, Abuna Emmanuel is again here. But when they see you or Rowena coming from UK, from the States to visit, there are people, we are not forgotten. There are people who are thinking about us, coming to visit us. So I have seen nice faces on the screen. I look forward to see you in person, you and other people who were in the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Abuna.
Open invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. And it just leaves me to say thank you all so much for joining us. Just a reminder that there's no session next week, so we'll see you all on the 7th of August. where we'll be in conversation with Archbishop Sami Fawzi, who is the Archbishop of Alexandria in Egypt. And I'm just going to finish by giving a very big thank you to Colin Chapman, and a special thank you to Father Emmanuel for being our speaker for tonight. It's been a fascinating and encouraging conversation, and something that we at Embrace like to share with our churches and supporters across the UK is that we're really part of the one household of God through Christ. And so I'm sure that all of our participants have been challenged and encouraged, and we'll all be praying for you. So thank you very much, and it's a privilege to partner with you. Great. Well, I think that's it. So we will see you in 2 weeks' time. And again.